Emergence. It's a word that implies change, an unfolding, birth, dawn, evolution. Not in the quick sense as zap or crack or boom, and forgive the I Dream of Jeannie reference, but arms folded, nod-headed, and something transforms instantly. Emergence is a process. Say it slowly. Emergence. It is not immediate or linear. It takes time to show its inner workings and external outcomes. I reflect on my personal emergences from grief, divorce, or this present time of COVID. These seemingly negative life events have helped me grow and sculpted me into a new being. One cannot experience loss and emerge as the same person. As Eckhart Tolle states, some changes look negative on the surface, but you will soon realize that space is being creative in your life for something new to emerge. That has been my experience, but it takes time for the growth, adaptation, and healing processes to occur. As we are entering this new phase of COVID or grief or a divorce, it seems natural to put a timeline on when things will be normal again, when the pain will stop, when living without a partner will be okay. We think that once the masks are removed, if ever, all will be well in the world, and it will look and feel just the same as before. We will be ready to socialize, to be out in the world again. We set goals, as referred to by Margaret Wheatley, which can be unrealistic or rigid, not allowing us time to adapt, keeping us stuck in the same patterns, unable to move forward. I've spoken to so many folks who thought their re-entry into the new COVID world would look and feel much as it had in March of 2020. Visions of coming out joyfully and socially ready to resume the same familiar ways with no change in outlook. What I hear in my personal experience is anything but that. How can it be? It is impossible to be the same person today as we were yesterday. Experience changes us. Some of us have lost loved ones, have lost jobs. Most of us lost social connections. Some of us discovered new things about ourselves, our families, our neighbors, and redefined our priorities. But not one of us is the same as we were pre-COVID. While experiencing the grief of losing a loved one, the goal set may be, it's been X amount of time since my loved one died, and I should be in a better place emotionally. I shouldn't still be feeling this profound grief. We set timelines, expectations of what the future should look like, how we should feel. And when those expectations are not met, there can be self-criticism, frustration, confusion, depression. The story of the metamorphosis of the caterpillar into the butterfly has long been used as a metaphor for transcending into a new state of being or consciousness. The caterpillar and the butterfly, while emerging or originating from the same egg, once having gone through this metamorphosis, has very different needs. What they eat, how they move, the environment that they surround themselves in have changed drastically. As we move through different life experiences, COVID being a current one, our needs have most likely shifted. What seemed important before may seem trivial now, or vice versa. Life is seen through a different lens. If you have ever watched a butterfly try to wriggle out of its chrysalis, you've seen the struggle. It doesn't crack open in one fell swoop, and not without effort on the butterfly's part. The emergence is slow. The butterfly pushes against the side of the chrysalis until it eventually breaks through. If the process is interfered with or pushed too quickly, the butterfly may not survive. The transformation is not passive, as our emergence from life's trials are not passive. The process is not always one we willingly embrace. Pema Chodron says, although we have the potential to experience the freedom of the butterfly, we mysteriously prefer the small and fearful cocoon of the ego. moving into uncharted territory can be frightening. But listen to what Richard Bach says. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. So much has to do with perspective and embracing a new normal rather than shying away from it. Once the butterfly emerges, it doesn't immediately take flight. It takes time to spread its wings, to adjust to its new life until it gracefully takes off on its inaugural flight. As with us emerging from COVID or grief or divorce, the process shouldn't be rushed. We need to allow time for the emergent process to happen, letting our wings slowly spread, adapting to the new world before we take flight. My personal experiences of grief and divorce have shown me the need for adaptation. After my divorce, I went to a support group. We had a workbook, and on the cover was a butterfly. I remember distinctly coloring that butterfly with vivid colors, imagining myself emerging just as powerful and beautiful with my new life taking off in graceful flight. I set a timeline for the healing and immediately set out to accomplish the task of becoming the butterfly. But things didn't unfold that way, and as I had anticipated. I experienced times of sadness and loneliness. I had to sit in my chrysalis for a while, allowing personal growth to occur without the strict boundaries and expectations that I had set. I eventually emerged as a transformed individual, but the transformation did not occur in my neatly structured lines. Periods of adaptation and readjustment were necessary along the way in order for me to move through this process. Grief is another human experience that can't be rushed. My sister Jane passed away from cancer at the age of 32, leaving behind a 4-year-old son. The depth of grief I felt was indescribable. I unknowingly had set arbitrary timeline as to when my grief would end. It took much longer than the goal I had set. I was critical of myself, frustrated and baffled. I wasn't allowing the grief to unfold as it needed to for me at that time. As you go through life and its changes, be gentle with yourself. Recognize that any transformation takes time, the journey isn't linear, and it is very personal. Hold yourself lovingly as you emerge as gradually and gracefully as the butterfly breaking out of its chrysalis. I will end with a poem titled Grace by George Yorgos Stathakis. In a state of confusion, little patience, without clarity, empty of tranquility, there I was, but there I did not seek to be, the guided path lost within my world. I was perplexed, bewildered, defeated. I needed amity of body, mind, and spirit. I needed the breath of life to infuse wholeness into my existence. But that I felt helpless to achieve. So I sat alone, in silence. I waited, consumed by my condition, unable to call upon decipherability as to understand the complexity of my despair and find solutions for my state. I surrendered to the abyss of the unknown. And then I felt it. The emergence of the unexplained, slowly, gently, mysteriously, taking hold of my being. For grace had now made her appearance and soothed my sheared and shattered soul. May you find the grace and strength to spread your wings and experience the freedom of the butterfly.